Hello, future people. Welcome to Getting Tabled. I'm Jason the Bruce, and today we're checking out one of the boxes from Star Wars Shatterpoint. It's time to embrace your pride. Long-time viewers may know that we've kind of been back and forth about Star Wars Shatterpoint for a little while. I myself had determined that I was not going to buy anything for it on release for a few reasons. So these all came out about a week ago now, so there probably is other opinions out there by the time that you will see this video. But I wanted to give my own opinions. I did buy this with the intention of the review. I do intend to play this at some point. It won't be in the next couple of weeks. But I am keen to see what this looks like. I am keen to see what I think of them. And ultimately, I want to build something that's a little bit different for a while. So let's get down and have a look. All right, so here we are with the front of the box. Now, you should have seen this by now. It's been advertised quite heavily, so I'd be very surprised if you haven't seen the artwork. I've got to say, as far as standing out on the shelf is concerned, I actually think these look a little bit nicer than the Marvel ones. I mean, I do like the Marvel ones. I'm not saying that they're bad, but there's just something about this that grabs me more. Maybe it's just because of the yellow stands out against the black a little bit more. I don't know. There's just something about it. I like the fact that you're seeing the artwork in the mini right next to each other as well, because there's kind of a nice feeling to that. On the back, we have literally the same image as what's on the front. I have to say that's kind of a little bit dumb in my view, because if you're going to do this, why is it on the front? And then we get kind of a similar sort of write-up to what we get with the Marvel ones. Text is a little bit bigger because the box is a little bit bigger. It kind of feels very much formulaic at this point. Like it just feels like it's a carbon copy, but themed towards Star Wars. All right, so that's an interesting choice. We do have something a little bit different there. There's a cardboard sleeve on the inside to protect it. Nice to see that there is actually some protection there. So we're continuing on with our instructions being online at this stage. I don't have a problem with that. I know there are some people that do, but this is just the way that things are today. It is giving you a warning to go and look at the instructions. I like the fact that they're saying that it's very important. And of course, it's not just ignored for everybody else. And then here we have a truly overwhelming number of cards. But don't panic, because this is sent to you in multilingual form. For those of you that don't need these other sets, there's a couple of things that you can do with it. Hypothetically, if you wanted to reuse this for terrain, you could use this for bases for trees or anything. That's perfectly fine. Otherwise, if you have friends in your local area that speak these languages, hold on to them because you may need them in future games. Just a thought. Yeah, there's a couple of ways that I could look at this. For the moment, I'm just purely interested in the layout and the look of the cards. Because, look, there's plenty of other people out there already giving their professional opinion on competitiveness and so forth. I'm not really interested in that comparison. I'm just looking at the unboxing. Layout-wise, it's a very similar format, but it does look very differently. First and foremost, the actual stats is far more simplified, and I really like that. Granted, in the case of Marvel, it makes more sense because superheroes can work in a number of different ways, so you kind of need this. But I like the fact that this is a little bit more simplified. In saying that, there is more on the other cards. But otherwise, look, things look kind of similar-ish. Layout-wise, there's less colours and so forth in this, and everything is kind of a little bit more straightforward. Artwork is more prevalent here. And whereas on the back of these, it's just another version. On the back of these, you get something else entirely. So I actually think, it's not entirely a fair comparison because, like I said, getting a superhero to work in a tabletop game is far more complicated than getting something from Star Wars to work. But beyond that complication, I actually think these look nicer. Just purely and simply, I think these look nicer. It's not that I don't like the artwork over here. I mean, the artwork is all nice, but I don't know. I just kind of feel like something's missing in this in comparison. So we've also got Jango Fett. I'm giving you guys a chance to read this if you want to pause the video. I do like the artwork. Only thing I would say as far as the box is concerned is that maybe it would have been nicer to have all of the artwork on the front and then the miniatures on the back, rather than just repeating the miniature design. So maybe I'm going against what I said earlier there. But again, like I said, this updated look to the cards feels very, very nice. You've also got these ones to take into account as well. The first thing that's important is these are not standard Magic the Gathering sized cards. They're not standard poker card size. These are tarot card size. So these are the same size as your Malifaux cards are. So that's important to know, especially if you're the sort of person that wants to sleeve your cards. You can't really do a comparison because this is not fair. I mean, this is kind of a... This is where things get more complicated because this game works completely differently. Basically, when you're attacking, depending on how many successes you have and so forth, you've got options. So there's videos that can explain this on the official videos. I'm just interested in the layout for now. For something that's, let's be honest, very complicated, it doesn't look very complicated on the cards. It looks fairly straightforward. Now, granted, this means that you need to understand what all these symbols mean. But providing that you know what they stand for, everything else is fairly easy. I mean, this is obviously a long-range shot type thing. This is obviously using the lightsabers. That's fairly straightforward. Tells you what the lightsabers and the guns do. So on and so forth. Like, it works really well. First, I like the fact that the sprues are coming in the bags because that means, providing that they're sealed properly, which this was, anything that comes loose during shipping should be remaining contained. It should help prevent lost pieces. Now, all right, bases-wise, first and foremost, a really unique-looking sprue. And I actually kind of like that. I kind of like the fact that the sprue doesn't look the same as everything else, because this sprue looks the same as everything else. But I actually really like it. Helps it stand out from the Marvel ones a little bit, which obviously will become an issue down the track for those that are playing both. Though in saying that, I see no reason why you couldn't fit these into a Marvel world, assuming that they're the same size, which they are. But I really like the designs on these. You could paint them up very nicely with anything like contrast or speed paints. You could do this up in a comic book cartoon-looking style, cel shading them, or you could just paint them normally. I have seen people doing exactly that already. But here's the thing I like. I'm already starting to see community builds using these sprues to build terrain and stuff. And I am all here for it. I've also seen people build glasses from them, which is just really silly, but I love how silly it is. I don't know if being able to use these for terrain was a design choice by AMG, but if it was, I applaud them for it. So we'll start at the top here, and we're starting with Dooku. The first thing I noticed is that very clearly they have been grouping the pieces for the models together, and I like that. I find it kind of frustrating when companies don't do that. So Dooku has some choices in the arms here, which is why I've been seeing different versions of the model. I kind of really like this. I love the cape. It's sculpted really nicely. And I love the fact that they have actually gotten his unique looking lightsaber. I really do like that. I actually do like... I know it's not everybody's favorite, but I actually do like this style of lightsaber. I do have more thoughts on this in a moment, but I'll come back to that. Moving on, we now get to... Moving on, we now get to the first of our droids. Their big long cape is quite... It stands out quite a bit. And then we go into our droid pieces. A little R2 droid here that I hadn't even noticed initially, if I'm honest. That appears to be on the base of Jango Fett. more on these in a moment because, yes, there's definitely thoughts I'm going to have on those. Honestly, parts and detail-wise, this looks really good. There's an issue with some of the Marvel stuff where some of the Marvel detail comes across as extremely soft, and it looks like they're not making that decision with this game. They are very clearly going for the more detail, which is important because loss of detail, whether the reasons for it are right or not, doesn't tend to come across well with the audience. I've seen a lot of criticism of the Marvel stuff because of how soft the detail is. Now, their reasoning for the soft detail in the Marvel stuff is because they want everything to be in scale, but scale isn't always the most important thing in a game. I know it's, how dare you say that in some people's eyes, but it's not always the most important thing. Sprue-wise, it looks really good. Before we get on to building them, there's one last thing I want to take a look at. All right, and here's my question. AMG, why does this box have to be so big? Now, one of the answers for this could be that other sets are going to need more than this, but I can only judge on what I have here, and this box doesn't even need to be half this size.
3.5 weeks later.
All right, and here we are with the finished builded models. Now, I'm going to show, I've been alluding to something earlier on in the video that I want to point out here. For those of you that have already seen these models in person, you probably already know where I'm going with this, but for those of you that aren't, this is the size of a standard superglue bottle. Literally, it's just Uhu superglue. And I'm using this to put into view just how insanely thin these are. The swords are so flim. They're so thin and flimsy. These are not going to survive gaming. They are in scale, which is lovely, but they are too thin. These will not survive gaming. These are a little better, but not by much. These are amongst the most fragile pieces of weaponry I have ever seen, to the point where the ones in Legion are actually bigger, which really should put something to scale for you. Now, don't get me wrong, the ones in Legion were always the wrong scale, but there was a reason for it, and this is a problem. This is not going to be okay long term. You will already see that there's a lot of people in the community that have been replacing these with acrylic rods, and that's probably not a bad idea. Another good alternative, if you want to keep it to the same sort of size, would be some nice brass rods. These would work because they'll actually be stronger, so they may actually work a little bit better. The other criticism I have, these droids are among the most annoying things to build that I've ever had. The glue points on these legs are absolutely pathetic and unacceptable, in my opinion. The fact that he's in such a weird pose is because that's the only way that I could get him to stand and dry. There are points where they're supposed to glue in, but the points are so small that they won't actually hold place. So, from my perspective, these two completely fail my grade. The other two are absolutely phenomenal. Now, as far as detail is concerned, these things are phenomenal. I love the look of these, including these. But from my building perspective, these are just not okay. Not okay at all. Detail be damned. Some things are more important than detail. And if you're going to have something built out of plastic, you need to have it in a way that's actually going to be okay for most people. This isn't just a matter of, well, they're more complicated. I usually give a pass on this stuff. I gave a pass on a lot of the things that the Marvel models were doing that most people downgraded them for. These two are a complete failure from a sculpting perspective, because they have been designed in a way that it's just not okay. There's nothing okay about them. So overall, look, if you like Dooku, this is a box that is lovely. I mean, the finished models are lovely, but half of this box is a complete disappointment, unfortunately. There's some really good ideas here, and there really is. Like, as much as I'm giving them a really bad pass as far as the way that they've been sculpted and the way they've been designed to go together, the finished models look incredible. I have seen examples of people building these fine, but they have been designed in a way that are really bad. And I'm sorry, that completely sours the game for me at this point. It's the only example I've had of building this stuff. I will obviously have to build another box to play, and obviously that'll give me another thing to put a judgment on. My assumption from here is that Grievous is probably going to be similar because he's going to have a similar sort of build and design. I assume that the rest of the droids are probably going to be in a similar sort of manner, and that makes me really, really nervous. If I was the designers, I would have designed it so that piece of the hips came off and that they were your gluing points, because it would have been better for the end user and it wouldn't have cost any more work. It just would have meant some different slicing. And for a company like AMG that has had some very heavy criticism with the way that they design models, which again, check out the history of this channel. I defend a lot of this stuff because I have built models that are really difficult in the past. But this is a failure in my opinion. This box in particular, half of the models are a failure. The other two are really nice. And that leaves me saying I don't think I can recommend the box. I will return at some point with another box. I don't know when that will be. I will still be buying some stuff because I want to be able to play this, which means I will need to buy another box at some point. But I don't know what that will be. And I will come back and I might try to source some opinions of the buildings of this model from other people within my gaming groups, for those that did buy the core set, just to see if I can get a bit of a more rounded opinion, and we'll come back with that at another time.